So, Joanne Stores LLC, the big box sewing and craft retailer in the United States, might be going out of business. What's happening, and what will US cosplayers do if it does? Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Cedar. I'm the Cosplay Cleric. I go to conventions and events to fix stuff for free. And when I'm not doing that, I'm here on the internet making content about the nerd spaces that I love. I've been a part of the cosplay and craft scene since 2009 and a cosplay medic since 2014. Before we get started, there's some major news that just came out. It is February 12th, and Joann's has filed a motion in the bankruptcy court in the District of Delaware, I believe, that there are 530 stores that are facing immediate shutdown. This is basically just a list of stores that potentially could close. So if you want to check out that list, it's the first sourced link in the description. They've also filed a motion to sell the company, but we'll get more into that later. Hi, Editing Cleric here. So the sale did go through, unfortunately, and it's looking more and more like those 530 stores will be shutting down as early as tomorrow. It's Friday the 14th as I'm talking right now, so who the heck knows? Certainly not me. Some background info for those who don't know. Joann's LLC is a sewing and craft retailer in the United States. They sell fabric, notions, yarn, etc. As of today, they have 855 stores across 49 states. They originally opened as Cleveland Fabric Shop in Cleveland, Ohio in 1943. As of 2021, they boasted somewhere around 23,000 employees and $2.7 billion in revenue. Not profits, revenue. However, Joann's has not been without its share of controversies, most recently during the pandemic. They chose to keep stores open despite an aging and therefore at-risk customer base and refused to pay sick leave for their employees. Corporate claimed to be an essential business due to their cloth mask program, which allowed crafters to come in, grab some free fabric, make cloth masks, and then donate those to hospitals and medical facilities. But at the time, those medical facilities were already turning away cloth masks as they were less effective than the N95 counterparts. There were even pushes by employees themselves to walk out and then shut down stores. Quote from a Vice article, they said, "We're saving lives by giving people the materials to make these masks. We're doing all these wonderful things to help people sustain life. But we're under a shelter-in-place order in Pennsylvania," said one longtime employee who was part of an effort to walk out on her store. "We do not want to be out. We don't think we're a necessary business." That shelter-in-place order was huge for the craft retail chain. Extra time indoors led many Americans to discover thousands of new hobbies, from sewing to baking and everything in between. Craft retailers like Joann's, Michaels, and Hobby Lobby tripped over themselves to offer the newest and trendiest craft supplies. Joann's made $210 million in profit, not income, profit, in 2020 alone. That's a jump of 23.25% over the previous fiscal year. Joann's became a publicly traded company in 2021, but quickly suffered setback after setback. 2 years later, in 2023, the company announced layoffs from its Ohio corporate office. A few months after that, Retail Dive added Joann's to its list of companies facing bankruptcy due to credit downgrades and failing sales. The final blow seemed to be a delisting notice from the NASDAQ in October of 2023. Joann's stock price fell below $1 per share, and the NASDAQ warned the company, basically, that if their stock did not rise above $1 per share, they would be delisted from the marketplace. Joann's announced that it would be filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in March of 2024. In overly simple terms, Chapter 11 bankruptcy is a legal process. It's all filed in courts, and it's all a whole bunch of legal mumbo jumbo. I leave that to the lawyers. But the main perk of Chapter 11 is that it allows a company to remain open while restructuring. Any of the filings and legal proceedings need to be approved by both the shareholders and the courts. Joann's March filing was all part of a deal to cut $1.1 billion of its debt effectively in half. What they ended up doing was selling $132 million worth of assets back to their lenders, and the company became privately owned in April of 2024. The company blamed their debt and inability to pay that debt on changing retail habits post-pandemic, supply chain woes, and inflation. Less than a year later, in January of 2025, the company filed for Chapter 11 Again, in a letter to their employees, Joann's corporate wrote, "Joann has been working closely with our financial stakeholders to evaluate how to best position the company for the future. This includes seeking buyers for a sale of the company. Should the company fail to secure a buyer who intends to continue to actively operate Joann's business, including potentially offering employment to some or all current company employees, it is possible that the company may have no choice but to immediately close its corporate office and conduct employee separations." On February 12th, Joann's released a list of 530 stores that could potentially be affected by the bankruptcy proceedings and might be closing. Unfortunately, my local store is on that list. Now, a little bit of copium. There's a meeting on Friday, February 14th, to kind of go over everything, and we might know a little bit more about which of those stores, if any, are actually going to be closing. I wouldn't make any purchases or anything like that until we know for sure which of these stores is going to be closing, if any, or if all of them are going to be closing. We just don't know. But once again, Joann's corporate has blamed, let me hear it, supply chain woes, inflation, and post-pandemic changes in spending. Many customers, including myself, are not convinced. Master Cosplayer It's Hack blames a disconnect with their core consumer base.
Many of us consumers have been telling Joann Fabrics for a few years now, what are you doing? Because they have, instead of, having their regular basics, they have taken those regular basics, especially in the fabric section, to put in weird, random fleece prints that sell really, really only one time a year. We have also seen where there are boxes and boxes and boxes of stock in the aisles that are not being stocked because they are cutting hours and they are not allowing their employees to do what they need to do to keep a store running. You cannot buy a product if it is not on the shelf. It is corporate decisions that have been going bad for years. This will be a huge loss for the crafting community, and Joann's once again is blaming the consumer for this when really it's their historically bad decisions.
Drag queen SeaTrick blames a dying consumer base and a lack of employee hours.
Joann's. What happened? Don't answer that. I know what happened. I don't know why you thought the key to your financial salvation was to cut hours back to the barest minimum you could possibly do, give a pay cut to any full-time workers, and then make all of your product worse cheap quality while maintaining the same high overdone price. None of that makes you more appealing than your competition online, because it's very clear that this company just cannot stay afloat. Despite everybody trying, despite every opportunity, they just cannot stay afloat because they chose profits over people every single time. I think this started 50 years ago. People stopped learning how to sew when it became more economically feasible to just buy mass manufactured garments from overseas. That happened about 50 or so years ago, and when that happened, people turned it into a hobby, and it became a more and more specialized hobby as the decades moved on. Eventually YouTube picked up, and now that's a great resource, but it's not going to be the same as somebody who's learning from their mom, learning from their grandma. And those generational chains have been broken because no one's needed to make garments for so long. And so even when Gen Z does want to learn how to sew, they don't necessarily have someone who knows how to sew. Their grandparents might be part of the generation that didn't really learn, or their grandparents are gone, or they're too old to teach how to sew. That happens a lot. We're in an era right now, there is so many people who used to be really active sewers that are passing away.
Now on Reddit, employees and customers alike have taken to sharing what they think might have saved the dying business model. User Unconfused Sub writes, "As employees on a sinking ship, let's share our ideas that probably would have helped the company in the last year. More apparel fabric. Yes, we sold a shit ton of fleece. I think our store is like number 2 in our district for the amount of fleece we sold. However, we lost an entire group of sewers when we stopped carrying a good selection of apparel fabric. Now, most stores are 75% fleece, cotton, and super snuggle. Knock it off with the home decor shit like every employee and customer has been begging for. 1 million places sell home decor. In the shopping plaza that I am in, 3 other places sell home decor. And basics haven't been stocked in my store since the end of October." User Herman's number 1 fan writes, "We needed a big Back to Basics campaign a year ago. I don't know if we will get another chance. Sewing Notions, yarn, and Yarn Notions stock should be the top priorities, not seasonal decor. We pushed away our core customers by never having what they needed." User Affectionate Past 905 replied, One day I was going to stock and I started with notions and actual craft materials, since a lot of the slots in the stowing notions section had no product. My district manager came over and said don't worry about putting that stuff out and to only focus on holiday stuff. That was the day my eyes glazed over and realized there was no hope of a craft store staying open that doesn't care if craft supplies were on the shelves. Also, the day my district manager said, don't worry about stocking the yarn on the shelves, just open the top and leave it in the aisle for people to dig through. That was my final straw. Right now, the top bidder for Joann's sale is Gordon Brothers Retail Group, a liquidator known for their handling of Borders, Bed Bath & Beyond, KB Toys, and more. While no one knows for certain what will happen if Gordon Brothers acquires the once beloved craft chain, it's highly likely that if they do, they will end up liquidating the company. Personally, I worry that we might see a situation similar to what happened to Hancock Fabrics in 2016. That store filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, went out of business, and was absolutely gutted and sold piecemeal to the highest bidder, and now only exists as an IP for Michael's stores. Now, the cosplay specific stuff. Joann's was and is a major retailer and source of supplies for many cosplayers. They've even collaborated with well-known cosplayers like Yaya Han, who continues to release new fabric selections with the store every spring and fall. It might have been her influence that brought Eva Foam to the craft chain, and now Eva Foam's trims and more with the Yaya Han name are a staple of many a Joann store. Yaya Han went to Twitter after the news of the bankruptcy in January. The loss of Joann's would be detrimental to the U.S. sewing and crafting community. I would mourn the loss. For all of us who have shopped there for many years, counting on that last-minute Joann trip before a con to help us finish our costumes, realize craft projects, fuel our creativity. The loss of such a retailer cannot be understated. Many rural U.S. cosplayers do not have access to other stores. Joann's is really all they have. While some cosplayers have said they'll switch to online retailers, many others have rejected the idea outright. For fabric specifically, it's hard to understand how it will flow or drape based on an online description. You have to feel the fabric in order to understand that. Swatches can sometimes take weeks to arrive, and many cosplayers just do not have the energy or the spoons to drive all the way to their nearest fabric retailer. For me, the closest non-corporate, non-quilt shop is like an hour and a half drive one way. And that's simply too far for a lot of cosplayers, especially during the middle of a con crunch where you need like 2 yards of trim like really, really quickly. To be perfectly frank, I worry about the future of cosplay if stuff like this continues. Right now, we're staring down the barrel of a trade war with China. The increased tariffs on fabric alone will make cosplay a lot more expensive and out of reach for newer cosplayers. And China produces about 35% of all of our fabric imports. Our other two major trading partners for fabric are specifically India and Pakistan. Between those three countries, that makes up about 75% of all fabric imported to the United States. Editing Cleric here. So as it turns out, we are also increasing our tariffs on India and Pakistan. Yay! That's great. Now I hear what you're saying. What about US-made fabrics? Well, there's two problems there. The first is that there aren't many U.S. fabric manufacturers anymore. A lot of them moved their corporations and their manufacturing factories overseas for cheaper labor. The second is that the majority of U.S. manufacturers for fabric mostly rely on industrial applications, stuff like the medical industry or canvas or upholstery fabrics. Of the top 9 fabric manufacturers in the United States, according to fabricmanufacturing.com, only 3 of them actually produce apparel fabric from what I saw. So now what? A handful of local quilt shops have posted about being a resource for the cosplay and crafting community, and right now it's more important than ever to support our local businesses. Now, according to a 2022 study from Civic Economics, if you spend $100 at a local business, $53 of that goes back to your community, compared to $13 if you go to a big box retailer. Our local craft and quilting shops are looking for new customers every single day. On top of that, those quilting ladies have forgotten more about crafting and about like fabric than most of us will ever learn. So I packed up my camera and I went to my local quilting store to ask around, interview a few people, and see what it was about. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I am incredibly lucky. My local craft shop is Kathy's Sew and Vac and Honey Run Quilters. Back in 2019, they dipped their toes into the cosplay community, offered a wider selection of apparel fabrics, instruction manuals, and reference guides, specialty cosplay materials, and a whole lot more. Nowadays, they offer classes and free sewing days where you can go in and make use of their huge crafting space to sit down and sew with other people in your community. Here's that interview. I am here with Tori and Dan of Honey Wren Quilters and Kathy's Sew and Vac. So, what inspired you to get started into the sewing business? And tell us a little bit about the store.
Okay, I started at a place downtown Chico, and it was my girlfriend's mother's boyfriend that owned the store, and he taught me the business.
Wow, okay. And when was that?
Long time ago. Well, I was 15 years old, and I'm 72, so.
So you've been in the business for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
What was that kind of like? Because I realize that the sewing community today is very different from what it was back in the 70s. Tell us a little bit about it. Like, how has the community kind of changed since you opened?
Well, when we first opened, it was, our customers were sewers, and they made clothing, they made everything, and it wasn't real crafty. So in today's world, it's, all about, quilts and craft sewing and artsy things. So back then we had sewers, and now we have people that sew that are artists more. I mean, and there's some beautiful things that the ladies and men do on a sewing machine in today's world.
Okay. Now, garment making has kind of fallen out of fashion in the last 50 or so years. What do you think about that? What do you think contributed to that?
Wow. The busy lifestyle of today, time would be a big one.
Time and convenience.
Yeah.
I would think it'd be like fast fashion too is becoming so popular. People tend to buy something and wear it for 1 or 2 times and discard it instead of having things that will last them a long time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've noticed that a bit too, where we're more concerned with wearing something for the fashion of it rather than wearing something for the longevity of it. Are you wearing homemade clothes?
My skirt is homemade, yes. If you want to see, this is from fabric that we sold at Kathy's. I believe we've sold out of this particular bolt right now, but I just thought it was beautiful. I wanted to have a skirt from it.
What do you think of when you hear the word cosplay?
People dressed in funny outfits.
That's kind of it. Cosplay originated with the term cosplay, but it's a Japanese term. But cosplaying used to be called masquerading, and it's been around since the 1920s. And it originated here in the United States. And cosplayers come from all kinds of walks of life and all kinds of different backgrounds and all kinds of skill levels. Your shop has decided to show and sell more cosplay and costume materials as well as more garment making materials. What made you decide to do that?
I think that we are always looking for a new thing to help, keep the lights on and pay the rent. And it was something that was very popular that a lot of people were talking about. And so the gentleman that was managing our store wanted to put it in, so we figured we would put some in and try it.
Well, I'm personally very grateful for that because, as you know, Joann's is filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And there are a lot of cosplayers who are worried about losing their potential ability to get fabrics and notions and other materials and supplies. Do you think that local quilt shops could fill that void?
They certainly could if they, I don't know that they would. I mean, it's funny because just this morning, without thinking about this interview or anything, we were talking about if they did go out that we would, try to put in more sewing type fabric that or is more dressmaking, that more like Joann's, and buying the closeouts and stuff to where we could compete with the Joann's pricing.
What do you think the average or hobbyist cosplayer should know about their local quilt shops?
Well, that we're here to help, and that we know a lot about sewing. Our people are experts, and we can answer questions, and we don't bite. So
I would say don't be intimidated. I know that there can be this kind of idea that quilt shops are for the more serious kind of sewers, things like that, and people starting out can be intimidated to come in, but we're all very friendly. Even if we don't know exactly what project you're doing, we're still happy to learn and happy to work with you, and you can find some amazing things. It's a great place to come in and experiment and see what people have. We have a big variety.
Now, there have been some quilt shops who have said that they're trying to fill the Joann's void, but a lot of the newer cosplayers and newer sewers are concerned because some local quilt shops have a reputation for being elitist. Besides what you just said, was there anything else that you'd want to try and tell them about their local quilt shops or about this shop to kind of ease their concerns?
I would say that I know that cosplayers often think that they're trying to be on more of a budget than quilters. Quilters tend to look for the higher end fabrics, and we've always stocked very high end fabrics. That's one of the things that sets us apart. But we do have clearance sections. Any quilt shop, even if they only have the most beautiful, high quality fabrics, even if you're not there yet, you're not at a place yet where you can invest that much into a project, there are clearance sections, there are different remnant things. Not every bolt of fabric will cost that much, and you can you can ease your way into it. And a lot of people end up deciding that they do want to get fewer things and make more high quality things. But if you're just starting out doing things like that, that's not prohibitive. You can still come in and find. And
I do know that this particular store does have their wonderful Wednesday sales quite frequently.
Every Wednesday.
So, you can come in and or at least look online and see if there's any sales coming up at your local shops. Your shop in particular has been competing with 3 big box stores, Michael's, Joann's, and most recently Hobby Lobby, as well as Walmart, who's trying to get into the crafting space. Has that affected your business, and do you think the loss of Joann's will help improve your business at all?
I'm sure it's affected us. Always more competition is going to affect you. As far as Joann's, I sort of think it's an opportunity for us if Joann's goes out. I mean, I don't wish them any.
Yeah.
I don't wish that they go out or anything, but I mean, I think, yeah, there's some things that could be better and more beneficial for us if we were the sort of go-to for everything.
Yeah, personally, I feel as though Joann's is a bit more impersonal. You don't get a lot of help when you're looking through Joann's, and the only time you really talk to anyone about sewing is when you're at the cut counter. And by that point, you've already made your selection, made your purchases, and have decided to kind of leave. So do you think that the experience of your average customer will be better at a local quilt shop over a Joann's?
I would think it'd be much better.
Definitely, you'll be greeted at the door, and there's someone here to help you the entire way. No one really makes it to the cut counter without having talked to at least one staff member. We'll check in, see if you need any help, what projects you're working on. If we have staff members who are constantly helping match colors, look for different prints, we're very happy to help, and it's a much more interactive experience. You build a lot more of a sense of community.
Is there anything that you would like younger or newbie sewers to know about your shop in particular?
I think just knowledge and fun. It's sewing is fun for a lot of people, and it can be fun for just about anybody. My granddaughter just recently started sewing quilts and making stuff, and it's it's fun. She brings her friends in here, and they all sit down and sew, and some of them had never sewn before. So I think the big fun word would be
What about you, Tori?
I would say definitely check with your shop and see about classes and activities. We have this lovely classroom here. It can be divided into 2 classrooms. So we have classes, all kinds of different classes, advanced classes, beginner classes. We offer a beginning sewing class. As long as it stays popular, we plan to continue offering it every few months, so people who've never touched a machine before can come in and learn to do it. We also have free sew days where you can just come in and set up and sew and be surrounded by other people sewing. And there's just a great place to build community and get support.
A class that's coming up, or a new product that just came in that you're excited about.
Oh man, there's a couple of our good customers that have been in this classroom till late in the evening for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, cutting fabric, and they've got about 15 people signed up, and every month, I think it's every month, they come in and they get a bag of all the different pieces of fabric they need, and they come in and they sew it up. I think that's, I mean, to me, it was just amazing that they did it to start with, because the amount of work that it took. But to see everybody get together and put together something like that was, sort of designed in this store, in my store, I think that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I'm not going to lie, I'm looking at these cut counters and I'm jealous.
Yeah, and what he's talking about, this was our first time trying a block of the month that we are completely doing ourselves here, and those customers, they're running it and they're teaching the class. They've put so much work into it, and that class, we were expecting it to be difficult to fill up, but it sold out very quickly. And we will continue to do a block of the month. So this one for this current cycle is completely filled up, but we'll be doing more block of the months when this one ends.
Now, for those who aren't familiar with quilters' terms, what's a block?
So a block is a little chunk of your quilt. It's probably a square, it could be a rectangle, but you make lots of little tiny blocks. Oh, thank you.
Oh, we have a demonstration. Thank you. Oh, this is beautiful.
So a block is a small chunk of a quilt. So this one was just bound and made into its own little freestanding placemat or whatever you want it to be. But if you did not put a binding on it, you could make a bunch of these and put them all together, and you'd end up with a giant quilt.
Cool.
So a block of the month is you come in and make one little piece of a quilt every month, and then when you're done, you put it all together and you've finished a whole quilt.
That's awesome. That sounds like a whole heck of a lot of fun. Well, thank you both so much for staying with me today. I really appreciate it. I have one last question for you. What are those?
These are design walls.
Design walls.
So when you're thinking, quilters specifically, but anyone can use them, you take your project and you're trying to look at it and visualize what to do, and you just stick it right up there, and you can arrange it and visualize it, set the whole thing up. You don't have to pin anything, you just put it there, and you can look at it, rearrange everything.
That is brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for meeting with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
We are online. Our website is kathysewandvac.com. That's Kathy's with a C. We are on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We also post on YouTube and TikTok. We do Mondays with Manders videos to kind of keep you updated on what is going on in our store, upcoming classes and new products. So come and find us.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for taking your time out of your day to come talk with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to say a special thank you to the patrons over on Patreon who have helped make both this video possible and the Cosplay Cleric possible in general. I don't make money from going to conventions, and I don't charge for my services. So all the money I make through content creation and through Patreon are how I support the free costume repairs at conventions. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe and all of that wonderful YouTube stuff. We're still... I'm not gonna lie, we're still figuring this whole thing out. So if you like this video, leave a comment. Let me know if there's anything that you wanted me to cover or anything that I missed. I would really appreciate that. Until next time.